Submerge the ship, aye, sir. Dive! 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 Dive!
Dive, maneuvering out.
Dive, all vents open. All vents open, sir.
Never in world history has the need for military readiness been more crucial.
Reading on the SAS from right to left. 6, Bravo. 6, November, Alpha. Captain, message is authentic.
I concur, Captain. I concur.
And never in the history of warfare has a mission been so unique.
Authorize launch, aye, sir.
To deter nuclear war.
Prepare 21, denote 22, 11, away. Missile away. Approach. Ignition.
This evolution, the test firing of a Trident II missile from a fleet ballistic missile submarine, took only a few minutes. But the sophisticated technology that made it happen has been 50 years in the making. How far have we come in that half-century? And how has the development of strategic systems programs technology reflected world events? To see that, we'll need to travel back in time. The world certainly seemed like a safer place to live 50 years ago.
Disneyland is dedicated to the ideals, the dreams, and the hard facts that have created America. Disneyland is your land.
1, 2, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, rock. 5, 6, 7 o'clock, ahead.
As much as we'd like to remember the 1950s as an uncomplicated decade, it was also a time when the Cold War ran hot.
Freedom's torch, lighting our continent, is the target of those who do not believe in freedom.
The air behind the scenes in military circles was filled with tension few Americans knew. But it was also a time that bred resourcefulness, a time when men and women with vision looked for strategic ways to protect our country and the world from nuclear war. Men like Rear Admiral William F. Rayborn. On December 2, 1955, Red Rayborn, a naval aviator, was appointed the first director of the Special Projects Office. His task was to develop a sea-based strategic weapons system with a 1,500-mile range.
Admiral Rayborn brought some very unique qualities. He had the ability to surround himself with the best person in each field. He was able to choose the correct people and inspire them to go forward and accomplish the mission. The task was monumental. There was really nothing that took priority over being at the office or being at a contractor's plant, participating in a test, getting the results, making the changes. We had extremely limited time to accomplish what we were trying to do. We were all dedicated. It was our life.
It was a tremendous challenge. It was one of the most exciting environments you could imagine. People at all levels were working their hearts out.
There was excitement, commitment, and to some extent chaos. But it was a good chaos, meaning everybody was trying to do their job and everybody else was trying to not interfere with getting the job done.
Admiral Rayborn was famous for wanting people to always hustle, always wanted movement in the halls. And so myself and some of our friends decided you needed to not only move quickly, you had to create the illusion. And so we would put our ties over our necks whenever we saw Admiral Rayborn coming. And it added, 10 miles an hour or something to our apparent speed. I think we were probably going to the coffee bar or something, but we got there quickly. That was the important thing.
Achieving the impossible is never easy. Rayborn and his staff had their share of successes and their share of misfires. But the genius of his team was in their ability to quickly take what they learned from those misfires and use it to attain their goal. As the 50s drew to a close, America and the world was changing. While the first sit-ins for equal rights were being organized, the Cold War escalated with the downing of a U-2 spy plane over Russia. The need for a nuclear deterrent was growing day by day.
2, 1, 0. Fire. Missile away.
The FBM team answered the call on July 20th, 1960, when they successfully fired a Polaris A-1 missile from the first Polaris submarine, the USS George Washington. The two-stage missile could carry a nuclear warhead 1,200 nautical miles.
Radar tracking.
Amazingly, under Vice Admiral Rayborn's guidance, the FBM government industry team brought the program from concept to launch in only 4 short years. The question on everyone's mind, especially the Russians, was, how did they do it?
All our goals were achieved by detailed planning ahead of time, by understanding the budget, understanding the technical details, understanding the critical milestones. So SP created something known as PERT to track milestones, track lines of balances, and SP also created an independent branch to see what's going on, to provide a catalyst for the contractors and also ourselves to tell us what we're doing right and wrong. One of the key aspects of why the FBM program is so successful is if you would have a meeting about any subject, you sit around a table, you couldn't tell who the contractor was and who the government guy was. We're all arguing for one thing, what's right for the program. With that kind of an atmosphere, you can't lose.
We weren't going to just deliver a missile out of our factory. We were going to deliver and support that missile as long as it was operational. That was very unique at that time. That birth-to-death responsibility caused everyone to feel, I'm responsible for this system. I'm going to make it operate. I'm going to keep it operating.
The early 1960s saw the beginnings of another head-to-head competition with the Soviets, the space race.
Liftoff. We have a liftoff. 32 minutes.
1961 saw Alan Shepard and Gus Grissom inaugurate the Mercury space program at Cape Canaveral. Just off that same Florida coast, the crew of the USS Ethan Allen launched the second generation of Polaris missiles, the Polaris A-2. The A-2 utilized improved motor case materials, which increased the weapon's range to 1,500 nautical miles. But even as the new missile was being test-fired, back in Washington, plans were well underway for the A-3, a significant milestone which would leave no land target out of the reach of the U.S. submarine fleet. Who were these people who were developing new missiles almost faster than they could be tested? In February 1962, Rear Admiral Pete Gallatin relieved Admiral Rayborn as director of the Special Projects Office. But the spirit of unparalleled teamwork continued on. People like Levering Smith, SSP's first technical director, remained to organize and motivate the government industry team to outperform their goals and objectives.
Admiral Smith, the technical director, was probably one of the finest engineering managers the Navy has ever produced.
Without good people that are properly motivated, who are interested in the program, not in self-interest, that the project can become successful.
This period in SSP history also saw the genesis of another groundbreaking partnership, the Polaris Sales Agreement between the United States and the United Kingdom. Under the agreement, the U.S. sold the Polaris weapon system to the UK. The Royal Navy built their own nuclear-powered ballistic missile submarines and equipped the missiles with their own warheads. The arrangement, which continues to this day with the latest Trident II missiles, dramatically increased the level of readiness, the area of coverage, and added another Allied leg to nuclear deterrence.
This partnership is more than just important, it's absolutely fundamental, and it underpins the UK's defence policy. It has been successive UK governments' defence policy to maintain a national strategic deterrent since 1968, firstly through the Polaris system and now through Trident.
As the 1960s progressed, it quickly became the decade of social change and turmoil. While the American public watched the Beatles on Ed Sullivan, the war escalate in Vietnam, and Neil Armstrong walk on the moon, the men and women of the Strategic Systems Programs team were looking into the 1980s and beyond. They were busy developing a whole new level of weapon system, the Poseidon C-3, to counter the Soviet threat.
We were given the tools to do the job. We were given the responsibility and the authority to do it. That was what made it an exciting program, was this time of innovation and doing things new and for the first time. The C-3 was truly a first. The MIRV system was indeed a first in missilery.
3, 2, 1.
T0.
Fire.
1. Roger, approaching ignition.
The Poseidon C-3 was first launched from the USS James Madison on August 3, 1970. Like the Polaris A-3, it had a 2,500 nautical mile range. But the Poseidon could be outfitted with multiple warheads, each of which could strike a separate target. This feature, known as Multiple Independently Targeted Reentry Vehicles, or MIRV, made it a far more efficient and effective deterrent.
I had a young engineer working for me, and I told him we're going to spread these warheads over quite a large area. Now we got to figure out how to do this. And he looked at me after a while and he said, "Boss, are you sure you're not out of your head?" However, he came through with a great concept, and of course we got the Poseidon bus out of it, which went on to the Trident.
The 70s brought a scattering of musical tastes, an unexpected change in politics, America's bicentennial, and a boxer named Rocky. The Cold War finally started to thaw, and U.S.-Soviet relations grew warmer, at least in the icy vacuum of space. But we were not yet ready to let down our guard, and the SSP team continued to develop a better deterrent system. That came in the form of the Trident I C-4 missile.
We were limited to 2,500 nautical mile ranges. This reduced the amount of sea room that our submarines could operate within. By going to 4,000 nautical miles and even greater, you could give greater sea room to the submarines and thereby make the anti-submarine task much more difficult.
The C-4 program had to have a missile that was fitting in the same size launch tube as the C-3. We had to have more range. So one of the biggest advances was, how do you get that range? It was from increased energy propellants in a novel third stage rocket motor placed around what we call the bus, around the reentry bodies, to get us the additional range. In addition, because of the increased range, we needed much better accuracy. So Levering Smith created the improved accuracy program. We spent a lot of time and effort figuring out what it was to get accuracy and to prove you can get it there. So it was accuracy and increased range were the primary things there.
The development of the Trident missile also led to the development of the new Trident SSBN force. The first, the USS Ohio, was launched on September 6, 1982. The new subs were quieter, more capable, and harder to detect than their predecessors. As we moved through the 1980s, some threats to our national security were overcome, while new threats arose. The need for a nuclear deterrent was as strong as ever. Seeking the ability to carry a larger payload with hard target accuracy on board the Ohio-class subs, the SSP team developed the Trident II D5 missile.
late 70s, leadership made the determination that a significant number of targets would need to be held at risk. The only method to do that was to significantly improve accuracy, and thus was born the Trident II D5 program with its significant accuracy improvements.
The biggest obstacle was D5 PEM-1, the first submarine-launched missile. I was on the submarine, we launched it, and the missile broke before it left the water and was a failure. And it was a spectacular failure. Shortly after that, Congress called me over and they said to me, what's the impact if we take away $1 billion of your money for production? So I said it's going to be a huge delay in the program, increase in cost, and after some discussions with these senators, we kind of came to an agreement. The agreement was if we could launch 5 missiles from a Trident submarine between about August and December without a failure for the most extreme areas of what we call a V-gamma map, they would release the money to me and would continue the program. Well, that was a challenge. Went back to our contractors and they almost couldn't believe that I made that deal. But with the help of a superb team, the government, contractors, we did it. We got our money, we met our objectives, and we came in on time and under budget.
D5 brought some more capability to us. It gave us more throw weight, it gave us more range, and because the world is a very big place and we were concerned about whether or not we could be survivable, i.e. can our submarines that are out there, can they stay undetected? And what we wanted to do was give them a lot of the ocean to be in where they could carry out their mission and still remain a survivable leg of our deterrent.
The events of the 1990s and the early years of the 21st century graphically illustrate that the need for deterrence is more vital today than ever before. We've come a long way from the days of Disneyland and Davy Crockett hats. The term weapons of mass destruction is now part of our everyday vocabulary, and those weapons are found or hidden in more hostile regions than ever before.
The SSP family of today is really no different than that under Admiral Rayburn. What we have today are people who are extremely dedicated to the program, dedicated to the cause, technically competent, extremely proficient in what they do.
We support the warfighter. We support the sailor out there. The sailor in those ships, the ones that's going to sea, they really are the tip of the spear that provides the protection that our country so richly deserves and enjoys.